Hey all, it's Matt, your average gamer, and this is my Remnant 2 review. I'm going to go over my first 10 to 15 hours through the game. I'm probably close to 15 hours in now currently. I'm going to try to leave some of the spoilers and stuff out, but this game is randomized to some extent, so it's very hard to leave spoilers out as a whole. I did leave a boss fight towards the end. That being said, we're going to talk about how good this game is and how much fun I've been having with Remnant 2 so far. In a year with a lot of Souls-likes, we had Lies of P, we had Lords of the Fallen, and then we had Remnant 2 over the summer. I didn't get a chance to play it, but I did play the other two, and now can honestly say that I've played all three. Out of all three, so far, my early impression is Remnant 2 is probably the smoothest and most fun for me personally, and I'm going to explain why. So we're going to talk about it in another video because I'm still going to be doing Lords of the Fallen content on this channel, but unfortunately with the patches lately for console, the game is actually going backwards. There's more frame rate drops, more texture pop-ins, and more problems with the game. They truly have their hands full after a very, very difficult launch. As for Lies of P, the combat for me always felt a step behind. I wasn't a huge fan of the slow combat, although the game did run smooth. Yeah, in Lies of P, I always felt like I was a step behind as far as attacking bosses and everything. I felt like my character was almost too slow at times, and I just couldn't really get behind that mechanic, that combat. It wasn't really addictive in terms of gameplay. When I finally beat it, I didn't have a lot of motivation to go back into New Game Plus. That being said, Lords of the Fallen was fun, but it is going backwards as far as the quality of life in the game, and that needs to be patched. As for Remnant 2, this is pretty much close to a perfect shooter with a mix of a Souls-like. Now I'm playing on normal difficulty or the easiest difficulty because I plan on doing more than one run and I get more value from the games that way. I'm going to play it and kind of learn it first, doing the easiest difficulty in the game, which is essentially normal, and then I'll do harder difficulties as I go on and learn the mechanics of the game. Now back at the central hub area, you can pretty much do everything you could do in a normal Souls or Souls-like game. And you can talk to characters in this game and you have different options of things that you can say. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but it can lead to some changes in terms of boss fights and stuff where you can initiate stuff quickly by things that you say. As far as the conversations go though, the story itself so far is, I would say, mediocre. It's not bad, it's not great, at least so far. As far as the hub area though, we have everything here we're going to show in a second, and you can pretty much do everything that you would want to do in a Souls-like game. Because of course we're going to want really good armor, we're going to want to upgrade our weapons, and then we're going to want to do basically everything that the game has to offer, including adding weapon mods and things like that. There are some different additions that this game has because of the fact that it is a shooter in combination with a Souls-like game. I picked the Hunter class, by the way, which has been fantastic so far. As far as the Hunter class goes, you get a dog that can literally revive you. I don't think you need to say much more than that. This dog will revive you and pick you up. He also does a fairly good amount of damage as you level up and whatnot too. So the Hunter class seems to be a very powerful class to start the game with, especially if you're like me and you're probably going to be going through the game solo. And as you can see on screen here, as you pick up scrap and different materials, you can upgrade your weapons. By the way, real quick, I wanted to say as far as the randomization, we'll talk about this again, the game can actually start in one of three worlds and then has one of two random bosses in those worlds that it can start out as. That's why it's difficult not to show spoilers when I show a boss later, because this could be a late game boss for you or it could be an early game boss. And here we can do different things like get different weapon modifications, which then we can equip on our weapons, giving us a little extra power. The Hunter class, by the way, also starts out with a really good assault rifle and a nice automatic backup pistol, and it's just a pretty powerful class to start. I looked up to check out what the best classes were, at least for beginners, and the Hunter class seems to be the best if you're going solo. Now that being said, I play pretty much all Souls and Souls-like games solo. Even if I have the option to play with someone else, it's just the way I am. I like playing them solo. I like that experience. That being said, Remnant 2 definitely leans towards wanting you to have a party or group to play with. I've heard it's definitely best for that, but it's definitely also at the same time a game you can take on solo and become strong enough to take down the bosses. Now for equipment, you can see on screen here, you have a whole bunch of different rings, armor, etc. It's pretty much your standard Souls-like game where you can continue just to pick up different things as far as loot, rings, weapons, etc. to make your character more powerful and stronger and to make the experience a little easier along the way. Also, a lot of secrets in this game. Like, there's going to be certain areas of the game that are randomized and certain items that are in random places as well that you're just going to have to go out of your way to find to make it a little more interesting. And here you can see on screen, we're gonna add a weapon mod to our weapon, and there's a whole bunch of different ones. This one, I think, freezes time so that regular enemies halt in place, essentially, and then you can get some damage on them. In a second here, we're going to get into the first main boss fight for me, but that being said, if you're picking up this game, if you're new to this game, if you haven't made up your mind and you're kind of waiting for my review or somebody else's review, keep in mind as far as these bosses go, it's very difficult for it to be spoiler free. That being said, I'm going to say at the end here, this is an 8.5 out of 10 game. We're going to talk about that at the end. This game is absolutely fantastic. Now we're going to jump into that boss fight here, which is going to be a little bit of a challenge for me because this was my first real boss fight. There is a tutorial boss that's the same for everybody, but you have help there. The tutorial has, I think, 2 or 3 other characters that are going to help you with that boss, so it's not always attacking you. As far as this boss, it's going to be mainly focused on me and my dog here. Yeah, this could end up being your last of 3 areas, or it can be your first of 3, and then supposedly, I haven't run into this mechanic yet because I'm on my first playthrough, you can also get one of, I believe, 2 random boss fights, so it could be a different boss when you get to the end of this level as well. That being said, on PS5, the gameplay, the gunplay, everything about this game is smooth. It doesn't really dip too much frame rate wise. There isn't a ton of issues like Lords of the Fallen has and still has, and it runs a lot smoother like Lies of P. But unlike Lies of P, for me personally, I enjoy the combat more because it's faster paced. I find it more interesting. It gets me into the boss fights. It's more exciting, and it's just quick. And Lies of P definitely for me was a little bit slow in terms of combat. Out of all 3, Remnant 2 really is the one that excels most for me, and it is weird to say that because it is a shooter, so it's going to have different vibes as you're playing this game. If you're not into shooters at all, then this game may not be for you. But if you like shooters in combination with a challenge and a Souls-like game, I think Remnant 2 does it pretty much perfectly. Now, if you're wondering why it's not a 10 out of 10 game, it does have some of those like budget cut type things that you find in the Souls-like games. Lords of the Fallen had this. Lies of P didn't really have that as bad, but the level designs were really short, so it was a little bit different. You will be fighting some of the same enemies over and over again as you level up, but that's just the nature of Souls-like games, and even some Souls games. Let's not forget, Elden Ring repeated several enemies, although the world was much bigger. And the only other complaint I have is that I already ran into a gimmick boss fight. I'm waiting for one of these Souls-like games to just say, nah, we don't need a gimmick boss fight. We're just going to come up with a ton of really great boss fights. So far, so good in this game, but there already was one gimmick boss fight because I guess it has to be there with a bunch of cubes. And while I didn't find it too challenging overall, at the same time, I'm still waiting for that Souls-like game, or the Souls game in general, that just doesn't have that gimmick-type boss because personally, I'm not a fan of them. Let's not forget, the Bed of Chaos is probably not everybody's most favorite boss fight in the history of Souls games. That being said, Remnant 2 so far is fantastic. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. I gave Lords a 7.5. I feel like it's a 7 now with the performance issues getting worse again. And I gave Lies of P an 8 out of 10. Out of the 3 so far, Remnant 2 takes the cake for me. I'm really enjoying this. I'm going to do some content for this game and Lords on this channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if that's something you want to see. Thanks for watching and have a great day.